Right, hi. Could you just introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello. I'm Jeff Stala, the Public Information Officer for Northern Water.
Cool. And then where are we right now?
So we're at Carter Lake, which is part of the Colorado Big Thompson project, which brings water from the Colorado River Basin onto the Front Range.
And is the Carter Lake the only?
And when we talk about reservoirs, this is one of the major storage or terminal reservoirs on the project, but there's a couple of others. There's Horsetooth Reservoir east or west of Fort Collins, and Boulder Reservoir, which is down by the community of Boulder.
Is this the main supplier to Boulder Reservoir?
Yes, so water that comes through Carter Lake will be delivered either by pipeline or by canal to Boulder Reservoir. Now, Boulder has a very diverse portfolio of water rights, so including Boulder Creek and the other creeks in that area, but this supplies probably a good half of the community's water supply in the city of Boulder.
Okay, and as you know, there's an invasive species called Asian water milfoil
Mm-hmm.
in Boulder Reservoir. Could you speak on that?
Sure. A couple of years ago, we were first notified of the presence of that invasive species to Boulder Reservoir. And it's something that we don't know exactly where it came from, but it really enjoys the environment here and spreads rapidly. And unfortunately, it crowds out other local plants and native plants and can create an issue because it grows in such big clumps in water sources like Boulder Reservoir.
And what is your major concern with EWM and Boulder Reservoir?
For Northern Water, our biggest concern is its effect on water infrastructure. So in other words, right next to Boulder Reservoir is a treatment plant for the city of Boulder, as well as the dam for Boulder Reservoir, which we can use to deliver water to farms, businesses, golf courses, to really all sorts of water users downstream of Boulder Reservoir. So having EWM, or Eurasian water milfoil, in the water can have an effect on how we operate that infrastructure. Right now, we are not experiencing any issues with our ability to operate it, but we know that that's something that we need to be vigilant of in the future.
And speaking of being vigilant, what steps have you taken or will be taking to combat it?
Well, Boulder Reservoir is actually jointly owned by Northern Water and the city of Boulder, and we know that it's a major source of recreation for the city of Boulder. And so we have been working with them actually over the past couple of years to look at ways to control EWM as well as remove it where possible and where feasible. Yeah.
And what do you think the problem of EWM really speaks to in the basis of Colorado water usage?
So Colorado is a very unique ecosystem with lots of plants and animals that were adapted just for this high altitude semi-arid environment. And so when you introduce plants or animals that aren't accustomed to here, they can take a spot in the niche or a niche in the ecosystem that is very hard to get them out of in the future. And so we view invasive species like EWM, like invasive mussels and even other invasive plants and insects very seriously because it can create an imbalance in the ecosystem.
And if EWM were to start causing infrastructure problems in the Boulder Reservoir, does Carter Lake have ways around that?
I'll hold on for a second. So before EWM was even detected, I'll start again. Before EWM was even detected in Boulder Reservoir, the community of Boulder had recognized the need for year-round deliveries from Carter Lake to their community. And so instead of having just an open canal, which is only available from April through October, they helped to fund a pipeline that was buried from Carter Lake all the way to the Boulder Water Treatment Plant so we can deliver water year-round. What that has meant in terms of EWM is that we've been able to continue to deliver water for water treatment and for drinking water supplies to the city of Boulder without having to put it through Boulder Reservoir and its invasive species.
And when we were speaking before, you spoke on the unique issue that Colorado has about their flexibility that their water is required to be. Could you just speak a little more on that?
Sure. So in Colorado, water is so precious that it's regulated from really the time it's in clouds till the time it leaves the state. And if you consider the Colorado Constitution, written in 1876, really had to come to grips with the need for a stable water supply in the state, with many uses being undertaken by the residents who lived here. So in the state constitution, it says that water is owned by the people of Colorado, everybody. People only, their ownership is the right to use it. And so the system of water rights really protects those who want to put water to a beneficial use, but it also ensures that the bigger purpose and the communal use of water is always protected. And so for places like Carter Lake, it's a place where we can store water for use when it's really needed, but also be able to have that recreational benefit of having the water available for swimming, and for a hot day like today, being out on a boat.
And then, is there EWM present at all in Carter Lake?
As of right now, there's no EWM present in Carter Lake. And that's something that, again, we are very vigilant about, making sure that those invasive species do not get into this reservoir. Actually, on the other end of this reservoir is an inspection station where every watercraft that goes into this water is inspected by a county worker to make sure that it has no EWM, no invasive species like mussels, or anything else that could harm the water quality here. No, that's fine. And that might be a cool piece of B-roll. Is at the other end there's that inspection station.
I was gonna have you point me out to some,
Okay.
like the pipeline and everything too.
Yep.
And then
Sure.
after you go, I was just gonna go get some.
Yeah.
Video. But let's see. Just give me. I guess just how. I mean, I guess you kind of already mentioned it, but just on how much of a priority right now is EWM management for northern water in Boulder Reservoir specifically?
Invasive species as a whole is a huge priority, not just for northern water, but for the state. That we have some pristine water here, and we want to keep it that way. Hold on. So Boulder Reservoir is really the first reservoir in which we've come across EWM. However, it is... Sorry, this was more traffic than I thought. So Boulder Reservoir is the first in the CBT project to have an EWM exposure. However, there are other reservoirs in the metropolitan area of Denver that do deal with this. And they have explored lots of other treatment options, such as using weevils that are actually a natural harvester of EWM, but they don't exist in enough quantity that we can deploy them in Boulder Reservoir. So right now we're considering the use of hand pulling. So in other words, harvesting that EWM and removing it from the reservoir. That becomes difficult because if you break a stem of EWM and it goes farther downstream, it can reestablish itself. So that's an issue that we're dealing with. We considered using a chemical herbicide to remove that EWM, but decided that because of all the other water uses required for Boulder Reservoir water, that it didn't make sense to use it this year. Yeah, that's fine.
Would you say that you're...
Mm-hmm.
water shirt now.
No worries.
I was like, who are these people? Why are they filming on our dams? Okay, brilliant.
So
Thank you.
I'm doing a stand-up.
Yeah.
So, because this water is good, but then it goes into Boulder Reservoir where there's Eurasian milfoil.
Ooh.
So, yeah, we'll be done here shortly.
Okay. Yeah, I just like saw you guys and
Oh.
I did see like a Northern Water plaster truck and I was
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, sorry about that.
like, but I appreciate y'all. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's people, they're filming on the dam.
Yep.
Normally not okay to film?
So, I mean, this is a protected area, and so this is an area where you have to have authorization to be on it. And so I didn't see, the reservoir is probably 80% full today, 75%.
This is 80%?
Yeah.
So then how would it get over, how deep is it? If it
So here it's probably a good 175 foot deep.
wow.
And so, so basically if you look at the other side of the dam where the canyon comes out, that's about how deep the reservoir is.
Okay, cool. And then just, would you say Northern Water's #1 priority is just to get potable water to people of Boulder?
Our #1 priority is actually to deliver water to more than 1 million people up and down the Front Range, from Broomfield all the way north of Fort Collins. That's about the population of Delaware, and we serve a large irrigation area for farming, about 1.6 million acres, which is about the size of the state of Delaware. As an agency, we are serving really a Delaware-sized population and state.
I have another question. Oh yeah, and then could you just explain the reasoning behind not using the herbicide again?
Sure. So as we considered and I'm going to wait for just a moment, let that go goodbye. It's a big old boat.
It is, yeah.
So we knew starting in 2023 and into last year that Eurasian water milfoil was going to be an issue that needed to be addressed. And so we started looking at whether we would have the opportunity to treat it with an herbicide that could really knock it back. But as we looked at, I'm just going to start that one again.
Oh, thanks, man.
So in 2023 and then last year, we really started considering what our options were to get rid of Eurasian water milfoil. That because of the damage it can do to water infrastructure, it was something that we wanted to have removed. We looked at an herbicide option using an option called triclopyr that would have provided a chemical deterrent for that invasive plant species. But as we looked at the other uses of the water for northern Colorado, we realized that was probably not the best option. So we continued to explore other alternatives, and one that has risen to the top right now is manually dealing with the weeds. So pulling them, getting rid of them from the reservoir where possible. And in the future we might explore other things, such as the natural solution of insects, or using specialty boats that have UV lights that can kill those plants in place as the boats go over the top of them.
And I'll just right here.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you're fine.
The reasoning for not using the herbicide was more logistical. That was just water allocation. Having to cut off water for a certain amount of weeks just wouldn't have worked. Could you?
So if you choose to use an herbicide, you are affecting the ability of that water to be used in other ways that right now we use water in so many ways, not only as recreation but to grow plants. And so if you put herbicide in that water, you won't be able to get that benefit of being able to grow plants with that water. And so that was a very strong consideration, because had we chosen that model, we would have had to basically let the reservoir sit unused for many, many weeks during prime growing season.
Yeah, so just like interrupting the water supply is the primary concern.
Right, that in Colorado there are folks downstream who are depending on water in just about every river basin that you can name. And so in Boulder Creek and where Boulder Reservoir sits, there are people downstream who depend on that water to be delivered to them.
Yeah, that seems good. I think that's kind of all I got
Okay.
now. I was wondering if
Yeah.
I could get, like what you
Yeah.
did right when
Yeah.
you got here and you just
Yeah.
pointed out all that
Sure thing.
for me.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good shot,
Yeah,
and then I
of
could
course.
transition that into actually going down to the place over there.
Okay, and I don't know that you can get down there from here. That's our infrastructure,
I'm
and
not
so
gonna go down there, but just like
Oh.
following along the creek, or not the creek path, though.
so you won't be able to access the canal road from here.
Got it.
If you went over to Rabbit Mountain Open Space, actually in the Rabbit Mountain Open Space parking lot,
Okay.
the canal goes right by it, and so that's a place where you would be able to have a good shot to show, hey, here's where water comes, past here on its way to Boulder Reservoir. So from Carter Lake, water goes through that outlet works down this hillside to the red building where there's a small hydropower generator, and we're able to generate just some electricity for the local grid. It's not an industrial amount at all, but it's enough for a few hundred households here at the base of the hill. And from there, water enters what's called the St. Vrain Supply Canal, and it heads south towards the St. Vrain River. And beyond that, it can travel via an open canal to Boulder Reservoir. About 20 years ago, the folks of Boulder came to us and asked if there's a way to deliver water to them year-round, because in wintertime, the canals don't work as well. And so we built a pipeline that actually goes from here down to the Boulder Water Treatment Plant.